David Canter is going to tell us about North Campus Research Complex and its journey from vacant to vibrant.
Well, thank you very much. Well, firstly, there's a little bit of difference. I'm not using PowerPoint here. And I do apologize if all the motion causes any motion sickness. I'm told that some people don't like watching this. So this is a very, very different story. Back in January of 2007, Pfizer unexpectedly decided to close their research campus in Ann Arbor. And this picture was taken of the three individuals. Jennifer Granholm was our governor at the time, Mayor of Ann Arbor, John Heafter, and Mike Finney, who was the leader of the business enterprise group, the Spark. What's missing is actually my picture, because I was there too. I was the director of, I worked for Pfizer at that time, and I was actually the director of the site. And I had learned about 2 weeks before that they were going to close the site. But these three individuals only learned that day. And so this was really an extraordinary windfall opportunity, which by about mid-2008, Pfizer had dragged its heels on trying to find a buyer. And come August of 2008, anyone who needed to credit to buy the site had to leave the table, leaving only the University of Michigan with cash. And thus, they were able to buy the site for $108 million. So as you can see, the Pfizer site was actually part of North Campus. The engineering school is barely a quarter of a mile away, a quarter to half a mile away. The medical school and the hospital is only about a mile and a half away, and main campus is about 2.5 miles, 2 miles away. So this is a campus of 2.2 million square feet. I think you've sort of heard of all of the other institutes today, typically 75, 100,000 square feet. This was an extraordinary act of faith by the university, because universities don't put up buildings or buy buildings without knowing who they're going to put in it. And in this particular occasion, they committed to owning 2.2 million square feet. And on the day they signed the deal, they did not know a single person who was going to go into this building. Brownian motion is different in the Midwest. We do not bump into molecules with lots of money. So in fact, in a very brave decision, the university didn't put up all the medical school and the hospital put up the majority of money for this deal. The university put about 30 million in, the hospital about 20, and the medical school put the rest. But most importantly, the medical school committed through all of its department chairs and the dean that they would actually fund the North Campus Research Complex for 10 years by taxing themselves on all their income. And that provided possibly a run of around $350 million estimated for both operational funds for those buildings that hadn't been activated, as well as about $175 million of capital funds for improvements and bringing the buildings online. So that runway of 10 years was an extraordinary decision, and actually really marks it as very, very different from the philanthropic funding. We are not dependent directly on philanthropic funding at all. The other thing was that there was a very deep reaction against naming any institutes. And in fact, they did not name a bunch of institutes. What they did was call for a set of proposals across campus, and there were 20 ideas that came forward, for which they picked up 5 ideas that they were going to pursue. But all those 20 ideas came from faculty-led groups, and I'm going to discuss a couple of them. Of those 5 original ideas, one of them, an energy institute, actually sort of fell apart pretty quickly as not being an idea that could be put into place. But the others have actually been implemented. The other real difference, which stalled the whole process for many, many months, was a very heated debate about how much money people would be charged for being there. The medical school has a totally different model of charging its faculty for the space that they use than every other school. The medical school actually carries depreciation from all of its faculty and at a significant level, which enables it to build up a war chest of funds that it uses for building new buildings. The School of Engineering doesn't do that at all. It's a totally nominal amount that's been introduced only a year or so ago by the provost, maybe a couple of dollars per square foot for labs, whilst the medical school would capture nearly $30 a square foot for depreciation. And so there was a complete logjam. And a great decision in the end was made by the provost, who basically came in and put forward a pool of money for several years to say, I will cover the depreciation for all non-medical school faculty, engineering, dentistry, pharmacy, all of those who wanted to come. I'll cover that component so that you are no worse off by moving your faculty from their current location to NCRC. And finally, they hired me, which was, I really have a business background. I certainly have a research background, but really a much more business-oriented focus. I'm not an academic. And that is quite a bold decision. Most institutes like this normally pick a very noted faculty member to be the director. But my mission was not to get in the way of faculty, but to enable others to be successful. And I was given a university title deliberately by the president in order to make certain that I wasn't too dependent on the medical school, despite the fact that the medical school were paying the bills. So you can sense, you have to read between the lines, all of the politics that was going on in all of this. And I'm not going to be explicit because this is being filmed, but there was lots of stuff that occurred before I arrived, and a lot of it was a reaction to previous experiences. So let me tell you two examples. One is a Biointerfaces Institute. Jörg Lahan, who's in the audience today, this was his brainchild. And as it was sort of framed, this was the idea, which is a wonderful example, really, of convergent science, where there is no department here at all. The four ideas of nanotechnology, cell and tissue engineering, microfluidics and sensors, and biomaterials and drug delivery were very broad categories for which faculty from many, many different departments and schools could fit in. But that's not how the rest of the campus and the administrators saw this issue. So when I was involved in trying to get all of the faculty moved, these faceless administrators, as I put it here, they saw it as, well, this isn't a program. I was told very bluntly by one person, programs have no standing in this university. We have schools and we have departments, and they're my faculty, and if my faculty wish to go and have a lab besides somebody else, that's only a concern of myself and those faculty that are moving. So we ended up having to do MOUs, Memorandum of Understandings, for every single faculty, with every different administrator in every different department. And essentially, we had to almost play the game of creating a virtual program, for which we've actually accomplished that. But I think it's one of accepting that's the way of the world and not getting too hung up about it. But it is a sobering issue, this concept of institute or center or program. Really, in a strong school department structure is for many people, a meaningless structure. The other thing we've done from the very beginning is we've measured ourselves. From the very word go, we worked with the Institute for Social Research at Michigan, who wanted to actually look to see how the faculty who moved to NCRC actually changed their behaviors, whether they were more successful, whether they were less successful. Did they actually retain their old ties whilst adding new ones, or were they simply replacing them? And one of the early pieces of work that came out, not directly with work at the NCRC, by Felix Cabot, Maggie Levenstein, and Jason Owen Smith, was some work that they did which really showed that the amount of overlap, if you looked at where people's labs were, where their offices were, where the coffee pot was, where the bathroom was, and you measured the amount of overlap, there was actually an extraordinary and a very statistically strong correlation. such that, as he put it, every additional 100 feet of path that you overlap yields a roughly 20% increase in the likelihood of a new collaboration. And that conditional is that there is a 21 to 31% increase in the likelihood that a grant will be funded within 3 years. Maybe it's something that people knew, but they didn't realize that actually inconvenience for faculty is actually an enabler. So one of the things that the biointerface group did, when they first moved in, they all moved in beside their labs. But actually, in the last year, all of the faculty have moved out of their offices by their labs, and they've all grouped together in a building that's connected to all of their labs, but they now got all of the 19 faculty together. And what we did was we knocked a few offices out between them to create a social space. And again, this is an interesting experiment to see. So let me talk about another project. The Institute for Health Policy and Innovation actually did become an institute after it was formed. The Regents did. It's the only one we have there that's a formal, regentially approved institute. And it started off with this, which is that the health systems research groups in Ann Arbor actually, when we did a census, turned out to have around about 850 people working in this area, which put it as actually the largest public university collection of health systems policy individuals. And they were scattered on 20 different locations around Ann Arbor. And they were all individually very successful. They're all the best earners from every department wants these people, because essentially they fund other research. And the idea came together, how powerful would it be if the majority of them came together in one place? And one of the most powerful elements was also that the VA has a center for clinical management research, also in Ann Arbor, and they too put out a public bid, which we competed for, to actually relocate their CCMR from the VA hospital to the North Campus. So we were able to renovate a really good space. We increased the density 20% from what the company, Pfizer used to have, created a lot of open open office space, and we now have about 600 of them in the NCRC. We recruited John Ayanian from Harvard to be the first director. He actually started full-time September 1st. And what we have now at the NCRC are faculty from 11 different schools, and 5 external company or members are actually a part of this IHPI. So it is now a very eclectic institute. Final slide. So we now have gone from 0 people there 4 years ago. We have just over 2,200 people on the campus. We have 5 research programs. We've started a venture accelerator. One decision I didn't mention, which I think is important, right at the beginning, university president insisted that the Office of Tech Transfer for the university and the Business Engagement Center for the university relocate to NCRC. That was not a popular decision by the individuals concerned, but they have, and it has made a huge impact. We've started a venture accelerator with mentors and residents. It's not just the classic incubator, it's really an accelerator. We've had very quickly, within a year, it was full. We've had 3 graduates already, 1 acquisition, 1 has moved to the West Coast as a result of venture funding, and another 1 has closed down, and they've moved out and handed back the IP. We have 2 mature companies that have leases. Those are the first leases that the university has ever done for any company on its own property. That was an extraordinarily difficult thing to accomplish. Those companies also are allowed to use and contract with the university animal services. That, again, was the most protracted discussion. Very interestingly, we're also exploring this idea of having exploratory labs with large multinational companies, and we have 2 there. And I think this is one of the most interesting possible developments, not to have a small companies in R&D facility, but actually to have a true cooperative lab with a multinational company. I'd like to see this explored much more. And then we have the VA. We have also measured in the last 3 years, done a survey of everyone who's there, and I've picked out 3, which I think, just for clarity, but they've all been very positive. So one of the things we've asked the occupants of NCRC is whether you are very satisfied or unsatisfied with the collaborative opportunities. And back in 2007, it was around 34% said they were either satisfied or very satisfied on a 6-point scale. That's gone up to about 44% in 2012 and around 57%. So we're definitely seeing that people are responding very, very well to the environment and feeling a sense of collaboration. Overall satisfaction has gone up the same. The biggest increase has been in food, in the satisfaction with food. And interestingly, we went from terrible results, mid-teen percentages, and in 1 year we went up to 52%. So what did we do? We put out an RFP to private companies and offered we had a commercial kitchen, and we said, what would you do with this if you wanted to run your business here? Oh, and by the way, you need to provide us some food and, and coffee and everything. So we gave the contract to probably one of the most deluxe external catering companies called Opus One in Southeast Michigan, who had previously had their facilities in Dearborn and wanted to tap into the Ann Arbor market. So we are the only non-subsidized catering on campus. We make money out of, my budget makes money out of catering, and as you can see, the way to a Midwesterner's heart is through his stomach. So thank you, and that's that.